So welcome to everyone. It's so good to see you. Sorry, we're still trying to sort out the mystery of why the link was working for some folks and not for others. So we'll do some more digging around that after we're done today, but we're glad that you made it. We'll be, I'm sure, allowing other people in as we go, and just sort of the vagaries of Zoom. We don't know what happened, but we'll keep working on that. So it's good to see you. I'm getting this flurry of emails. So I'm going to multitask here. And yeah. Anyways, there we go. It's so good to be here. So the purpose for today is to get everybody sort of oriented, to share with you the vision for the lab and where it's going, to give you some experiences of that, and to just answer your questions and give you just an opportunity to see kind of the future of where we're going with our programs and what we're trying to offer folks in terms of how they can take part in the work that we do. So for starters, I would just like to welcome you all, and if you just wouldn't mind putting your name and where you're calling from in the chat box, get a sense of who's on the call today. And while you're doing that, I'm going to respond to the other people that are having the same issue. So there we go. Right. Oh, and we even have Vicky.
Yes, and I'm sorry I'm a host. It was the only way I could join, so you can unhost me.
You've been promoted. You're an honorary host for this morning, Vicky. Zoom's decided it's having a different life of its own this morning, so we're doing our best to corral it.
Yes, I couldn't get in any other way, so here I am.
It's all good. All right. Oh, there's Emma. All right. Well, let me just give you just a bit of orientation of kind of how we're going to spend our time. So Emily and I will be sort of your hosts for today. So Emily will help us with the technology and things in the background and work with the breakout rooms. And also is our co-designer of the lab. And so we're it's excited to have you be here today. And the way this is going to work, we're just going to spend a few minutes together sort of talking about radical presence, which is sort of our theme for today. And then we're going to allow you to choose your own breakout rooms. So we have sort of 3 that we've chosen, just sort of as a way to cue that up for you. So one of them will be for those of you who'd like to continue the conversation about radical presence itself and how it's showing up in your practice, any questions or insights you've had about that. One is that we're going to, over time, fold in our park benches and our pivotal moments calls will now become part of the lab. So we have Claudia here this morning as one of our park benches hosts. And so if you'd like to spend time with Claudia and sort of experience the park benches, which is a very sort of experiential, direct way of accessing this work. So you can choose Claudia's group, you will be able to choose your own. And the third one will be for those of you, I'm not seeing too many, but who are maybe new to this and would like to ask more questions about what we do at the Institute and what the lab's about. And then in the course of sort of the conversation about radical presence, you might come up with another idea of a group you'd like to have. And so we can always arrange for that as well. And yeah, so I'm just curious as we start. So we've had our first exam, our final exam about radical presence was in the first 5 minutes of our call as we tried to figure out why Zoom was not working for anyone. But I'm just curious about what brought you here today, either in terms of the lab itself or anything about radical presence that feels important to you today. Does someone would like to kick that off?
Sure. Marion here.
Hey, Marion.
I came to reconnect with what you're doing, David, and the people who are here, and to catch up on things and to learn more about the lab.
Okay, thank you.
I'm actually very new to, I stumbled upon actually on a YouTube of one of the talks you had. And then I went to your website and I stumbled upon that there was a talk. So I thought, okay, I'll join and see what it is.
Thank you. You're calling from Hong Kong this morning?
Yes, well, actually 10 o'clock at night.
Evening for you, yes.
I'll say something. One of my huge takeaway reminders from being in the recent integrative development program was everything's better in community. Better, easier, more richer. So that's what this is.
Great.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Carol, and because I am who I am, I'm curious about this, and I would concur everything is better in community. And you know, for radical presence, yes, I'm up for that. So, that's why I'm here.
Good morning, all. I'm back in the fold after having just attended my 40th college reunion. Talk about radical presence. You really, really present to the changes afoot in my life. But also I wanted to get back, in touch and see what where you are, David, with this and how the is expressing itself. With Emily also. I saw her a minute ago. Good morning. So check in and a sense also that I need a little more intention in this space, in the community.
Right, let me just share a few things about the lab itself, and then we'll look a bit at radical presence for a few minutes, and then we'll see which group you'd like to be in. So I had a vision for what we are starting today about 3 years ago. I started parts of it in Australia. And then when I moved back to the States, I had this sort of vision for a learning community. And we made a couple of sort of preliminary attempts to kind of go at that. People like Frockeline were very, very helpful to help us have those conversations about community and what that meant and what that looked like. And Colin was quite involved in parts of that as well. And so we began to sort of think about, like, what are these times for? Because when we were putting some of these early plans together, it was in the middle of a pandemic, which was harder than we thought to deal with in terms of putting new things together. But in short run, I'll just say this. So one of my observations, even more during the pandemic, was that a lot of people in the coaching and related spaces invested a lot in their own development, taking reading a lot, taking new programs, just trying to figure out kind of which way was up and where the future was for our professions. And so if you think sort of as a bell curve of development, a lot of us spend a lot of time in the middle, kind of taking, like I said, learning new things, deepening our knowledge about our practice. And what I have started to observe that those of us who were finding our way, were actually spending more time at the other end, at both ends of the spectrum, in the sense of spending more time on our own well-being and our own sort of psycho-spiritual development, because these times were calling for different things from us than they were in the past. We're having to reinvent our practices, reinvent our lives. Many of us moved, did all kinds of things, and sort of how do we keep going in terms of our own wellness and our own sort of resilience and sort of depth of soul, if you will, about moving through these times. And the second piece at the other end of the spectrum that I observed was that a lot of the forms through which we were working were changing, and I believe will change even more significantly as the years go by. And we couldn't just sort of sit in the middle and be coaches. We were being asked to deal with topics, issues, complexities, challenges that were beyond what many of us had experienced with our clients in the past. Many of us were reimagining what it meant to work and what our work would look like. And so in that, the lab was sort of grew to this sense of, we've all now done a lot of our own work for ourselves. And now it's like, how do we, as some of you have said, come together in community, deepen those relationships, deepen our own growth, not necessarily take on lots of new information yet, but really just deepen our relationships and our connections to each other, which was what many of us crave since we've not been able to travel so much. And then the second thing was that our institutions and professions are going to have a hard time keeping up. They're not really equipped to be able to help us move fast enough in terms of reimagining our practices. So many of us have taken our own passions, our own insights, and gone and done that on our own. But we thought, wouldn't it be great if we could create an incubator, a laboratory in which people could create, co-create, and reimagine what it means to be a coach or a facilitator or a choir conductor or whatever it is that we're doing with our lives. And so the purpose for the lab really is to give us the space to create a kind of a loose infrastructure, and Emily will show you a bit of that in a minute, but and then to see how we might support each other to kind of move forward, particularly at these two ends of our own developmental spectrum. Yeah, and so that's kind of where this is born. So we've, Emily in just a minute or so will show you what this looks like. And just give you a feel for kind of where this is going. When we launch our next two cohorts of narrative coach and integrative development in January, it will be on this platform. So we'll be able to link graduates and students and visitors in the same space and give people much more discretion about how they move forward with their studies or their further growth. And it will just give us a chance to provide opportunities for some of our students to become teachers and to be able to evolve the work much faster and much more profoundly than we would otherwise if we were stuck in a more traditional paradigm of programs by themselves. So I'm just going to stop there for a minute and see if there's any sort of questions you might have. And then I'm going to, Emily, are you thinking we might want to do the show and tell of the platform at this point, or do you want to do it after we're done with the breakouts? Do you have a preference?
Since a few folks are still kind of finding their way here, it might be helpful to do it at the tail end just in case a few more people find their way.
All right, we'll leave some time for that. That's great. Right. Are there any questions before we begin? And now I'll just share a few things about radical presence itself. All right. If there are any, you can always put them in the chat box, or the group is small enough, you can just flag us down and we're happy to circle back around. So the thought I wanted to bring into the session today about radical presence, I was thinking about this a lot over the weekend. That one of the elements that we've introduced with radical presence is to help us when in the course of our practice. It's very easy to get caught up in our own stories, our own formulations about what we think is going on with our client, and therefore what we think we should be doing about that, because we believe this will help. And a lot of what we've been focusing on in the programs is how do we allow ourselves to stay open to what's actually happening for the client in the moment, and not get trapped in our own stories about what we think is happening or should be happening. And so I was thinking about, given this, it's sort of easy to sort of tip over into a sense of overwhelm in this time, with so much happening in Ukraine and with climate change and with the pandemic and with politics and all kinds of other things. That one of the things that I was really sort of sitting with was, how do we stay open to what's emerging, to not form judgment or not form assumption, and stay present to all that's emerging at a time when sometimes that feels like that's a bit much. And we would like to just kind of like close things down a bit to make it a bit more manageable for us. And so I've just been thinking a lot about that, and sort of noticing about how do we, and this goes back to our narrative release program last year. I realized that from myself even, that when I get overwhelmed, like I've had a really intense day with clients, I'm realizing that what I notice in myself is I don't breathe as fully. I don't exhale as fully because I'm taking a lot in and I'm not letting enough back out. And so one of the things I've really, in a sort of funny way, begin to incorporate into my life is when I have my last client at the end of the day, or my last class I'm teaching, I just spend some time just really focusing on my exhale, and to really notice if there's things I've kept in my body or kept in my mind or my heart that will not serve me well, to kind of carry that through the rest of my day. And part of what allows me to remain open in my work and open in the rest of my life, my personal life after I'm done working, is just keep the breathing cycle going, and just to really focus on the exhale and the releasing of things that are not mine to carry anymore. And what I find is that I've noticed that I carry more than I had realized, and so for me, it's become quite the practice just to let that go to the greatest degree possible. Yeah, so it's the bit I wanted to put out for us to think about today, particularly those of you who'd like to talk a bit more about how radical presence is showing up in your life or in your practice, if you'd like to join that breakout group when it comes time. But I want to just invite you to take that in terms of looking at your own breathing and what you've noticed about it during this time. And if there's things that would be helpful to you to attend to your breathing in a sort of compassionate way, to help you be able to stay more present to yourself and present to others. All right. There's Kathy Craven. All right, and Lillian's here too. All right, so anyone want to share? Oh, so Indigo, I see your hand is up.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. As you were sharing, David, one of the things I've noted about not exhaling or holding the breath when we've got a lot on our plate is a very visceral thing of holding the breath to listen, to hear around the bellows of our breathing, especially if we're in a intense circumstance where it's important for us to be cued into it. And I'm wondering if part of that might be a need to listen to ourselves on a deeper level, as well as listening to clients.
Mm-hmm.
But I notice in myself when something intense is going on, I hold my breath because I'm like trying to keep track and not miss anything. And just listening to you share, I got the prompt to go deeper with the client in terms of my listening rather than like storing it or storying it, but also that maybe there's something in myself I need to be listening to also. Just a thought on that.
Thank you. It is true. We tend to concentrate when we're trying to really focus. And when we concentrate, we often hold our breath. Other thoughts or reflections for yourself?
Yeah, thank you, David. Hi. I was having radical disturbance with my PC to try and log on. And recently I've been thinking of presence, and not radically, but at some point I said, I need to have committed presence. And then it went to authentic presence, to be authentically present. And just an example of what happened today when I was having problems to log in. In the past, I would have got all frustrated and saying, what am I missing? And these days I try and just let go and say, well, it's not about me, it's about the moment. And if I'm meant to be present, then I'll log in. And I think that's that letting go, that releasing, it links to your exhalation in the breathing. It's just saying, okay, fine. And when I do let go and I untangle myself, then things just unravel and comes to place.
Yeah, because one of the ironies, Colin, when we concentrate and hold our breath while we're thinking, is we have less oxygen available to think. And so we're running on fumes, and then we're getting more exasperated because our brain's not working fully. And just like you said, just to step back actually brings more oxygen into our system, and we actually think more clearly. Laura.
Good morning. Something that resonated with me, David, with something you just said recently, was taking a breath in a compassionate way. Because when I'm trying to get present and remember to breathe, there's almost like a judgmental thing that's happening, like, Laura, just breathe, right? Rather than just breathe. Yeah. So I circled that because that's something that I hadn't thought of it before in terms of breathing in or taking a breath or being radically present in a compassionate way.
One of the ways I sort of make fun of myself when I get in that place with Laura is I just remember my body knows how to breathe. It's breathed its entire life. It doesn't need my mind's help to breathe. Matter of fact, my mind gets in the way of my breathing. But just let my body breathe itself, it would be fine.
Very wise.
All right. Hey, Lillian. All right. All right, Emily, can I turn this over to you and get us sort of set up for our breakout time?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thanks to everybody for experimenting with us a little bit in this space. We're going to use the Zoom choose your own breakout room feature here, and we've got 3 set up. And one of them is to continue the topic here of radical presence. Another one is David mentioned a little bit on the front end of introducing the lab as a community space, that some of the other programming that happens in and around the Moment Institute, such as park benches or pivotal moments, we're going to incorporate that into this space, and it will become an offering in these breakout moments. So one of our breakout rooms today will be dedicated to that, and the the energy and the flow and the hosts that you enjoy and have come to rely on in those spaces will inhabit and provide that same experience. It's just a bit of a different entry point. The goal of the lab is to really provide a community space, a touch point for each of us. Every week we will offer these sessions, and it will be in the morning and in the evening, and the breakout rooms eventually will be designed just to tend to the needs of whoever shows up in this space in that moment. And the beginning part of each session will be spent in conversation and in community to help boil those things to the surface, so that we can organize on the latter half of the time to attend to what we need, to attend to the possibilities of being connected in this space and to one another. So this morning we have, to continue the topic of radical presence as a breakout, park benches, and we have Claudia here, so she will be in that space. And we also have one that we've just titled Getting Started for now. We realize that there could be some folks on the call who are maybe new here, or don't quite know which breakout room that they'd like to join in this moment. So it's more of a mixing space, just to have some casual conversation, to maybe hear how you found your way to the community or what you might be needing from it. And so what I'm going to do is I'll open up these breakout rooms now, and what I believe is going to happen, everybody. What I believe will happen is that you will be able to choose which room that you join once I do that. And then once you choose the room, you will be whisked away into that space with others who want to convene and to have a conversation in and around that topic. We also believe that there is the functionality that you can switch rooms or come back to the main room anytime that you need to or want to. So just know if you are toggling some of your settings in and around the breakout rooms, that you'll be able to see those things. And I'm going to hit open rooms now. And so you should be able to see that you have an invitation to the rooms. Are there any questions before we start this part of the next great experiment here in the lab?
I'm sorry, Emily, I don't know the park bench concept.
Oh.
So how is that different from the radical presence?
Yeah. Claudia, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, Hillary, it's not going to be any different. No, I don't know. It might, one of the components, so park benches has been going on for a little over a year, I think. It's a place of, it's a space in which we come together with no agenda, no PowerPoint. So jokingly, I said it would be the same because radical presence is one important component of being in that space, with a structure that there is a structure, but there is not structure as usual, the ones that we are familiar with in the many of the environments and the spaces that we inhabit, not only professionally, but even personally. So there is a structure, yes. And we also, when we come together, that the way that we come together gives, in a way, structure to the moment that we share. So there is a lot of emergence. Whoever shows up will impact the way things go. And what we try to do is we weave elements of narrative coaching or integrative development or even narrative release into that space. But it's very emergent, and I hope this gave you an idea. And I was, you know, it will depend on who hits that button, but I myself was getting very curious to explore radical presence. Radical comes from the Latin word root. So what does that mean? And what does that mean to be present, only present and radically present? And who knows where we would have gone. Yeah. Thank you, Hillary.
The title for the event comes from a parable that's in the book from a dear Heather Plett, a dear Canadian friend, who talked about her experience of narrative coaching and being at a retreat as sitting on a park bench with a dear friend, where you don't know exactly what's going to emerge, but you know that you're going to be in great conversation and great awareness of what's present in the room. And so it's just, yeah. All right.
Thank you for that additional context, David. I know I joke around with you a lot as the king of context, but I think I think that this space is special because, you know, many of us have found our way to the Moment Institute through various channels, whether that is a retreat or a program or the BCE. And there are, you know, some of these little things like knowing where the name park benches came from that we might not otherwise surface or, you know, be able to appreciate. And I think that, you know, that will be as the stories emerge or, you know, as the context emerged for all of these things, it will add a lot of dimension to the community.
All right.
Just one more thing. When, how long will we be in the breakout?
David, how long would you like?
Well, how long do you need for the run? 15 minutes for the run?
Yeah, I think, 10 to 15.
Yeah. So I think if we give them, say, 30 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that. So I believe you have your options in front of you. They're all open. So go ahead and choose whichever room you'd like to join.
Emily, I'm not seeing any options.
I'm not
No
seeing
options. Okay.
Broccolin has a question, I think.
You need
I see them. You have to click on the breakout room button.
Yes.
Bottom, the breakout room. Bottom.
Okay,
Thank
now
you.
I see him.
Broccolin, did you have a comment or question?
Yes, a question about the getting started. Is that getting started with the lab or getting started with the Moment Institute in general?
The latter, mostly, yeah.
The latter. Yes, okay, thank you.
There they go.
Yeah. So I do see that Tammy, you have joined the call. And you joined right at the moment when folks are self-selecting into breakout rooms. And so people aren't mass exiting from the call. They're just joining specific conversations. So if you take a look and if you hit the breakout link, you'll see a topical space called Radical Presence. Where folks will be discussing that topic. You'll see one that's called Park Benches, and Park Benches is a long-standing event that happens here at the Moment Institute that's designed to have no agenda, no slides. It's, you know, the conversation topic is emergent for whoever comes into the space. And then if you see the Getting Started group, that is for individuals who might not be incredibly familiar with the programs or the events or offerings of the Moment Institute and just kind of want a touch point about what is offered in this space. Can we answer any questions for you?
No, I know exactly where I'm going. Thank you.
Okay.
Wonderful. I couldn't get into the link. But thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yes.
Good. There we go. All right. Well, hopefully you had a wonderful time in whatever room you were in. And I'm going to turn this over to Emily right now to give us a little bit of a run through about what the platform actually looks like. And then we'll have about 10 minutes just to give you some time for any questions you have. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, David. Before I kind of share my screen so you can get a look at what the Circle platform looks like, where we will be hosting the digital community part of the lab space. What I want to say is that it's a gathering spot, a watering hole. It is a place it's maybe a digital bulletin board. It's a place for us to share, what we're working on, what's coming up for us in our personal and professional development spaces, and to be able to connect in small pods, to be able to identify those in the community who are working in sectors or in industries similar to us, and to begin conversations about how we can support each other and what we're seeing as possibilities in those spaces. I like to think about the lab as a continuity of experience and relationship that were catalyzed perhaps elsewhere in the Moment Institute. So maybe you initially found your way to this community through a program, narrative coaching, integrative development. Perhaps you were at a retreat, years ago in person with David, or enjoying one of the virtual ones that happened over the pandemic. Perhaps you were just a friend who had been invited to a Pivotal Moments or a Park Benches session, and are just looking for a next step or another dimension or a way to get involved. The lab will offer that. It can be a bridge between where you were in your program to what's next. It could be a bridge from where you are now or into a new program as they launch in the new year. So just know that it was designed with flexibility in mind. It was designed to be able to meet the needs, the individual and unique needs of everyone in the community, and for us to meet those together. The pilot program that we're launching is for the next 6 months in the Circle space. And we're kind of wrapping it in the container of 6 months to say, we're trying this out. We want feedback. We would like to see how to best respond to the actual needs of the folks who show up there, and not just, perhaps what we believe them to be. We want to continue to tweak this design based upon your feedback. And so, without further ado, I'll start the tour, if you will. But feel free to unmute yourself as I'm doing this. And if you have a question, please surface it and we can address it as we go along. All right, so can everybody see a big message that says the Threshold Lab here? Okay, I see a few head nods there. Okay, so this is Circle. I can kind of best describe it as a private Facebook group type space that will allow us to share together in threaded spaces. So right now, if you were to become a member of the Threshold Lab space, you would join in and see exactly what you're seeing here. This is a member view. And inside the Threshold Lab, we've got a couple of spaces already designed that I want to walk you through and highlight today. But knowing that as more people join and become members and subscribe, that this is a living, breathing space where we will all post and share and interact. And so we will co-create this experience together. We started out with a few building blocks here, if you will, but each of you will add your own pieces. So we've organized this into a discussions thread. a place where we are almost like a calendar listing of all of the lab sessions. Again, the live sessions take place on Mondays. You're in one now at 10 a.m. Eastern and 6 p.m. Eastern. And so that is, you'll see them all here. You can RSVP. When you go ahead and click on one of these sessions, you'll see that there's kind of a short little breakdown of how we're going to spend the time. As as more people are joining and as we see what the needs are, we'll add greater specificity to each one of these event descriptions. But for right now, we wanted to make sure at least that we put those dates on your calendar and that you know when those are being offered. Today we had a session that included a little bit on the topic of radical presence. So each one of these lab sessions will have a topical focus. Sometimes that will be brought by the host. David will be joining for some of these sessions, but again, this is about the broader community. And so you will see different members of the Moment Institute community stepping into a lab host role here. Sometimes we might have guests, maybe an organization who has a topic that they want to introduce to our community. The beauty about the way that we have this set up is that we can invite folks in, visitors, friends, guests, to help enrich the community space. When you're looking at these individual lab sessions, you will see the Zoom link. And right now, sadly, I'm going to say the infamous Zoom link because of the issues that we had this morning. But there is a Zoom link associated with each one of these sessions, and it is the same Zoom link. So the meeting ID that got you here is the same meeting ID that will bring you into the lab space. And so I want to highlight that because we're working on streamlining and having efficiencies whereby you're not having to look for the link for the session, that you know where to go. It's almost like homeroom, that you feel less anxious or any kind of hurried anticipation around your involvement or in joining the space as we're launching these live events each week. We also have a space for resources here. And in the resources section, we will be posting the recorded part, the archived part of each of our live sessions. So if you happen to join a little bit late today, we will have a recording of the initial part that we'll share here. Of course, the breakouts are a little bit more intimate and private in nature, so we do not record anything related to that. But it's also a space where we can share resources with one another. If there was a guest speaker or a presenter in this space in the beginning, we could share their slide deck here or any PDF resources. As we're getting into this space today, I included a short little tutorial about the Choose Your Own Adventure breakout room feature, just to help orient. These are the kinds of things that we might be able to share as we are dipping our toes maybe into new technologies or into new functionalities of technologies we've been working with for the past 2 years. We also have a digital bulletin board space, and this is designed, if you have a request or if you have a need or something, you have something that you want to offer this community and this space, there's an area where you can go ahead and share this here. As the space starts filling up, we've got several of our early adopters already in here and interacting. But when you click on a member, you have the ability to check out their background or their biography, whatever it is that they want to share about themselves and their personal or professional focus, their location, ways to get in touch with that person. And you can create conversation threads. You can create conversation groups. One of the phrases that came up a bit in our breakout session earlier was something that David's talked about for a while, which are nimble pods. So if you find yourself in the lab and are looking for other individuals or folks working in your realm or in your sector, we have ways to be able to connect and organize topically or by industry in this space. And so I'm going to pause my talking right now for a minute, just to see if folks have any questions right here at the start.
I can bring one from the chat box, Emily, just to get it started. So Emma's asking, can anyone join in these labs, or do they have to be a student of one of our programs?
Thank you for that question. David, if you would like me to answer it, I will, but if you'd like to, you can as well.
Okay. Well, I can, you can chime in about what this looks like on Circle, but for me, so part of the impetus for the labs was not only to connect students, new students with graduates, but also to create a space that would welcome people that are visitors, people that maybe came to a single event or saw a YouTube video and not really ready to commit to a whole program, but want to stay in touch because they really are attracted to the quality of the people we have in our community. And so in time, as we build this up, there'll be a couple of levels of access, if you will. So a person in a program will have access, obviously, to more than a visitor because they need the resources for their program. But there will be spaces and a pathway to be involved for those who are just coming to be a part of the community for now. And that's all that they want. And then they might enjoy that so much that they then choose to have a program. Anything you would add to that, Emily?
I would, also add that our live sessions are such that, they're open for you to be able to invite a friend. So even if they are not a member of the lab community, if you have a colleague, or a friend that you feel, might find value or opportunity in this space and just want them to hear some of the conversations or meet some of the people for themselves, the lab offers the ability for you to be able to invite a friend to come in to see if this is a community that they want to be a part of.
And we will be evolving a set of sort of practices or best practices to kind of help shape and guide this as we evolve. And it's very much such that there'll be more and more emergent leaders in the community that are not me or not Emily. And so, for example, we've noticed in the ID program that people that are external consultants have been more able to, if you will, sell ID to their clients than people that work inside organizations who have more, maybe a bit more challenge. And so we're one of the, I think, early groups we could see forming is, how do I talk to my clients about ID? And we could even have some case stories of people that have been successful at that. What did they do? And what did they learn in the process? What language was convincing, et cetera, et cetera. So again, we want to help the community help itself and identify what it feels important without always having to go back through us, but they can actually help each other. I don't work in an organization, so the ones who do will actually have more wisdom about that than I will, because they're actually in the throes of that every day. And so we want to create a space for them to find others who are seeking the same kind of help. So.
David, and could you please, thank you. Could you please share something about how the park bench can be part of, or is part of the lab, in the sense that if people can and can come only to the park bench the Monday that it happens, or if they have to be members of the lab to do that?
So I can't answer that totally especially in terms of the payment part. But what I can say is that, this is like, most of what's here is familiar through other things that we do online. And it will take a while for each of us to kind of get used to this. And so this feels like home to us. And so, and we want to kind of build a transition for park benches and pivotal moments into this space. So for now, we would imagine it would be the same routine rhythm as we have, which is once a month, there would be a park bench. So they would come here as opposed to just into the Zoom room directly. It would be through the lab itself. there could be easily a thread of park bench, sort of like you have in the chat box going today, park bench participants. I could fully see, I hear this beautiful recurring pattern of what people experience in park benches. You could say, we'd like to do more with this. We think this offers a bigger offering, or has a bigger thing to offer to the community than just once a month. So a subset of the park benches community could come together and say, we'd like to brainstorm about how do we take what we're discovering in the park benches space to the broader community. That could end up being a program, that could end up being a weekly park benches. We don't know yet, but we wanted to not assume anything ourselves or push too hard in the beginning, keep the rhythm that we have now as people on board in the new platform, and then let that community decide what would be most valuable to it as we move forward.
And David, I might add just kind of from a practical registering aspect.
Great.
There will be a registration link for park benches still on the Moment Institute website. It will trigger an email that will deliver the Zoom link for that particular session. That Zoom link will bring them into the doors of the Threshold Lab, similarly to what we did today. A good analogy might be that we're trying to bring people in through a central door here, and that once they're through the door, we will lead them down the path to the room that Park Benches is going to be held in, or the room that Pivotal Moments is going to be held in. But there's kind of a lobby space, and there's like a place where you might, have a conversation with somebody who didn't show up here today for Park Benches, but maybe you learned something from that you want to continue a conversation with them, or that they want to follow you into the park bench space for that day. There will be room, again, to invite friends or people who are not members of the lab. And just to kind of speak a little bit to the topic of membership for the lab, Circle and what we're doing here is based on a subscription model. So this would be, you would subscribe for access to this space and to this community during our pilot program for a cost of $97 a month. And so for that $97, you are entered into here as a member. You will have access to all of the conversations, all of the archives, all of the resources, all of the people. And you will be able to utilize this platform to, again, kind of I'll say self-select and organize and grow, your interests or different aspects of what you need or are here for. Because this is run through that subscription model, that cost, it will be, it's almost like a Netflix subscription is an easy way to, to think about it, and that you have the ability to end your subscription at any time. Just through when you sign up in your profile and in your settings, if you find that it's not the right fit for you, you would simply just decide that you would end your subscription to the lab. Our hope is that in this initial 6-month pilot period, that people will commit to being with us for the next 6 months and being early adopters and innovators to help build this out in a way that is responsive to the people who are here, and to be collaborative and participatory in creating a digital community that is rich with resources and with each other.
Thank you, Emily, for that. Those images are very helpful. The doors on the Netflix, and that image of the door. So if I'm listening, I'm following the link on the website to register for Park Bench. If it remains there and is one of those doors, people who attended Park Bench didn't have to pay for it. So the monthly Park Bench within the lab, I know, David, I mean, when I asked you, that was part of the question, but yeah, if people register through that, they will still come into the park bench, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just made a note to myself. I mean, part of the value of this launch date was just to kind of look at it, sort of understand where we don't have all the answers yet, or what questions you have and what we need to kind of make clear. So this has been very helpful. I just wanted to also acknowledge time. So we got a little bit of a late start with all the Zoom kerfuffling. If you have to go, thank you for coming. It really means a lot that you're here. Emily and I we'll stay on as long as we need to get all of your questions answered. So one of the things we'll do after today as well is we'll send a follow-up email to all the registrants today with the recording, but also with some responses to some of these questions. Rather than try to answer all the details now, I'd rather just make sure I confer with Emily afterwards and make sure where everything's on the same page and is getting you what you need. So we'll be able to send that to you as well and hopefully give you more answers to these questions.
And I went ahead and just accidentally dropped a link to the Zoom because that was what was on my clipboard. But I also dropped a link to more information about the Threshold Lab on the page on the Moment Institute website.
And we do have, Joel is working on the Zoom issue as we speak. So I emailed him as soon as you all were in breakout rooms to have him start researching with Zoom what happened today. So we won't have that happen again. Yeah. Other questions or other reflections that we can hear from you now?
I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and bring us back to full Zoom.
All right. Yeah, Frokeline.
I was just wondering very practically, is this going to replace the Kajabi platform for the programs, or is that going to stay?
We don't know yet. We don't know yet. We did realize that one of our roadblocks before was Kajabi was not evolving fast enough to give us the kind of community platform we wanted. So we're starting that in Circles. So it is true that our intent is to move all of our programming to Circle, but Circle doesn't have a few things that Kajabi does that we really appreciate. And so we might, and we don't want to overwhelm people with too many changes all at the same time. So their experience of their programs will be largely, will be similar. And once we get the programs migrated over in January and starting there in the spring, we'll start looking at, can we get our other needs met through a better platform than Kajabi, or is Kajabi fine for the things it still does? But all of the programming, all the forums, all of the interactive pieces will all move to Circle, and Kajabi will be more around payments and marketing and databases and infrastructure, et cetera. But so for a participant's perspective, your interaction with us will largely be through Circle, not through Kajabi after this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Karen.
I just want to invite everybody to the next place to join us in the lobby, which is Pivotal Moments. Next week, 10 or 6, Robert, who is here as the host for the 10 a.m. and I am the host for the 6 p.m. Pivotal Moments event. And there we really just look at one aspect of a Moment Institute teaching, of our shared humanity. There's teaching, there's breakout groups, and it's just a chance to, and it's different than the park spaces. It has a little twist to it, so come and experience that and see what it's like. And also at this time, it's complimentary, David, correct? So that site, that link will be on the website as well, so you can just go there and find that and easily register, and then the tech gods will be with us next week. We'll see. We'll see.
Is there a theme for next week that you've already identified? You said there's, I'm not familiar with that yet.
That's a great question, David.
I was hoping you had the answer to that. Let me just, I can tell you, it's, yeah, see if it's still here.
If you're referring to the one on the lab document, David, I believe that it was working somatically in the field.
Okay. Oh, it doesn't say anymore. Some clever person already updated our website.
So the reason I asked David is David has, up to this point and continuing on in at least the short future, come up with an amazing theme and a way to bring that into the space.
Yeah, so they're mostly like little mini retreats. We take a sort of a provocative question about this practice and we give you an actual lived experience of it and then give you some time to debrief that. So they're fun. And it's the whole premise is that, everything's happening so much around us, fast around us. We want to create resources and what we think of as pivotal moments when we're, invited to make new choices about how we show up. And that's where we focus on various flavors of that. Yeah. Anything else for today? So I want to just thank you again for coming. This has been in the making for over a year. We finally found the platform that will allow us to do what we wanted to do before. So we're really happy about that. We know that this is just the beginning and that a year from now, we'll look back and think, wow, look how far we've come. And for me, it is part of the ongoing commitment to sort of decenter myself, if you will, in a way, to really help the community accelerate this work beyond me and beyond what we've done. And to realize that as time goes on, our connections to each other are the most valuable thing that we have. And we want to create an honoring of that in a way to really make the most of that and most of what you'll have invested in this journey so far. And so I'm really excited. I think this will be absolutely fabulous. And I'm really pleased that I have Emily on board and we're helping to put all that together for you. So stay tuned. And if you want to come to our next one on Monday, we'll have Pivotal Moments experience as one of your breakout options. We will have solved the Zoom gremlin and we'll make a couple other tweaks to make this even better for you. All right. Any parting words from you, Emily?
Oh, I'm really grateful for everybody who showed up with curiosity to explore this with us. I think that it is exciting for its potential, and I recognize that its potential really depends on you all and people showing up to this space, because it is something that will evolve and that we will co-create together, but happens because of the energy and the ideas and the expressed needs that each of you brings and that we all attend to together. So I have a lot of gratitude for that.
Great.
And we for you both and everybody here.
Thanks. All right. Thank you, my friends. We'll see you around soon. Be well.